Happy Saturday, everyone. Welcome to the Secrets of Stylish Women. And this is the first time I'm having a guest on my podcast. The gorgeous, the intelligent, the talented Stephanie Humphrey, also known as Life Steph. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you so much for having me. This is wonderful.
I'm so excited. So y'all know that I started my podcast a couple of weeks ago. I have my mic, I have my streaming service, and that's all because of Stephanie. We're going to get into how we met and how, I came to start the podcast in a minute. But for those who don't know, The Secrets of Stylish Women is a podcast created by women for women, particularly professional middle-aged women. I'm a middle-aged woman, yes. And we're just having a conversation about style. In addition to style, we'll be talking about life, because you can't talk about style unless you talk about life. So we're going to be sharing some style secrets, getting into Stephanie's extensive and amazing background, sharing some secrets, and having fun. So please pay attention, ask questions, and we're going to serve you some amazing conversation. So, Stephanie, let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
Now, before we get into your background, before we start talking tech, describe your personal style.
Well, obviously, you can see what I'm wearing. It's definitely very sporty, and I try to incorporate a level of sportiness and comfort into everything I wear. So, even regardless of the situation, if that makes sense. So, even if it's a formal situation, I might be in a jumpsuit, but covered in sequins. You know what I mean? So you sort of adapt the style to the situation, but you don't change the style, really. And again, sporty chic is what I aspire to be. I'll let the public determine whether or not I achieve that, but definitely very sporty and comfortable.
Okay, so you were in corporate for a number of years. How were you able to balance your desire for sporty chic with your career?
It's so funny. I didn't at the time. At the time, I felt like I needed to kind of assimilate, if you will. And I was very much into, so funny, Eddie Bauer, LL Bean.
Functional.
Sweater sets, Ann Taylor, like not suits necessarily, but a lot of chinos. I owned a lot of chinos and a lot of sweater sets, and I wore Keds. Like literally that was sort of the uniform of the women that worked in my office. So I sort of went with that and didn't really start thinking about my style, my personal style, and what I wanted that to look like in real life until I started speaking to students. Because, I sort of felt like I needed to be able to relate to them a little bit better and not have childish. I didn't want my wardrobe to be childish, but I definitely wanted it to reflect me, to reflect, what I was into, but also grab a little bit of their attention as well.
Okay, so when we think about chinos, like as soon as you said chinos, I thought about like corporate, like the uniform of like the tech folks or, people like that. And you have obviously a tech background. So tell us a little bit about, your technical background and how you transitioned into what you are doing today.
So I am an engineer by trade and training. I have 2 degrees in engineering, and I worked for Lockheed Martin for 13 years, government defense contractor, and just was not happy there. Was never happy there from the very beginning, honestly, and was looking for an exit strategy. So at the time, I got an opportunity to model in a fashion show. And it was a favor for a friend that sort of turned into a side hustle that then turned into what is now the Life Steph brand. I mean, obviously, there's a much longer story behind that, but it was definitely an iterative process. I didn't just say, oh, I'm leaving my job to go to go to Hollywood or go to LA or whatever. It was just like, oh, this is interesting. This might be something I can do on the side. And then it was like, oh, this is interesting. I think I could make a living at this. Mm-hmm. Oh, this is interesting. I think I can leave my whole job and do this instead. And then thinking about pivoting into the tech, pivoting back into the tech, because I had sort of left that behind for a little bit, but then pivoting back into the tech really sort of cemented the idea that this was where I was supposed to be.
Okay, so I did listen to your TEDx talk, and I heard some of this story, but for those who don't know, you really, you were leaning into the whole like media personality and modeling and all that. So when you think about pivoting from one career or one industry to the other, how would you advise people to do that? Because I know so many people who are doing things that they don't want to do and don't have the opportunity to marry their passion with their skill set.
Honestly, it's planning, but it's also just at some point you have to decide to execute. You know what I mean? There really isn't necessarily, one piece of advice I could give people. I tell people all the time I had a 3-pronged plan to leave my job. So I wanted to, I actually refinanced my house.
Wow.
And not necessarily to take any money out, but I actually separated out the escrow so that like I know I can make enough money to pay this mortgage. The escrow part, I could have a little bit more flexibility if for whatever reason I wasn't able to pay that. So I wanted, because I own a duplex, so I have a tenant. I was like, if I just need to get that mortgage paid, that rent will pay that mortgage. So I will be able to keep my home. If I need to, go to the township and make some arrangements for the escrow piece, I can do that. You know what I mean? So I refinanced my house, separated out the escrow. I actually downsized my vehicle. I was driving a huge SUV at the time. I was like, I'm gonna need something smaller, something cheaper, something better on gas, because I know now I'm gonna be going to a lot more auditions. I'm gonna be between Philadelphia and New York quite a bit. So, I'm gonna need a more economical vehicle to drive around in. So I got rid of my baby. I loved her so much, but got rid of my baby, got a smaller car. And I had a dollar amount that I wanted to have in the bank before I left. They talk about having that 3 to 6 months salary saved and all of that. I had a dollar amount that I felt like I would be comfortable with to walk away from a 6-figure job. And once I hit that dollar amount, it was time to go. And I just, and I say it like it was easy, but it definitely was not trivial. I tell people the story all the time about the month that I left. It was March of 2007. And I worked for Lockheed Martin, so there were a lot of extra things that needed to get done for me to leave. I had government clearance. I had top secret clearances. So, you don't just give 2 weeks and go. You know what I mean? There's a lot of paperwork you have to dispose of in a secure way. There's debriefings that need to happen. There's a whole bunch of stuff that has to happen when you leave that company. And so I gave my notice at the beginning of March for the end of March, because I was like, a month should be enough time to get all that stuff, squared away and turn in my badge and all this other stuff. The entire month of March, I was having panic attacks. Like the whole month. I couldn't sleep. I literally was sleeping propped up on pillows, because every time I would lay down, I felt like the acid reflux would come up and just start, gagging me. And I was just freaking out, because I'm about to walk away from this thing that I've known, this thing that I studied for, this thing that I got 2 degrees for, this thing that I was told that I was supposed to do. You're supposed to get a good job. You're supposed to all of this. I'm getting ready to literally walk away from all of that, walk away from healthcare, walk away from, everything. So I literally was having panic attacks. I look back now and I realized that was what was happening at the time. I was like, oh my God, what's going on? I feel like I'm dying, my chest, my heart palpitations, like everything. And however, the day I left, like that last day when I walked out and was like, all right, y'all, take care, slept like a baby. Slept like a baby. Slept for like 13, 14 hours and woke up, and I just felt like a completely different person.
Wow, that's an amazing story. And it shows you how when you are preparing to do something that is fully aligned with you, you are going to go through.
Yeah, it's not going to be comfortable. It's not going to be comfortable at all. But it's going to be what you need. And on the other side of it, you'll understand why you had to go through it.
So I'm actually going through that now, y'all. So, but I want to talk a little bit more about being a woman in technology, being a Black woman in technology, being a Black woman in technology who is stylish. How do you balance all of that?
It's interesting because no one ever thinks I'm in tech when they first see me and meet me, and no one ever thinks engineer. Unfortunately, sometimes I gotta bring the receipts and bring yes, let folk know, bring the credentials out. Like no, don't get it twisted. It's so funny when I literally when I first became Life Steph. When Life Steph was born, it was like 2011, that time frame, 2011, 2012. And I wasn't wearing glasses at the time. And I was very adamant about not wearing glasses because I didn't want to play into that nerd archetype. I was like, I don't want to do it. Like, I want people, and especially young Black girls, to see that you can be smart and fly. You know what I mean? You can be cute. You can wear your little whatever. You can do seriously. It was very, very important to me. When I was doing television appearances and all of that. Like I hadn't even really leaned into the sportiness of my style at that time. I was sort of just trying to be as chic as possible, especially for TV. And then for, stuff like Good Morning America and stuff like that, there is a certain level of elevation that you have to have, I think, with your look. But I had a very good friend of mine, Toy Sweeney, is a very good stylist and brand, strategist and that whole thing. And, I would call her anytime I had anything. I was like, listen, I got this thing. I need you to, and she would put together a little lookbook or send me some ideas and, sort of inspiration. And I'd go out and buy a piece or two or whatever. But it was very, very important to me when I first, sort of pivoted the brand into tech and media, that I wasn't playing up the nerd. Even though I'm a proud nerd. Listen, I am a proud nerd. Smart is cool. You can be smart and cool, but I didn't want to play into that stereotype at the time because I wanted people to understand that wasn't the only way tech gets represented.
Yes, and I understand that. So I'm not technically inclined. I'm not in tech at all, okay? And that's one of my areas of weakness. So actually, it's a good segue into the next thought I had. How would you recommend, or what would you recommend for people in general, but women specifically, who are trying to navigate the tech space? Like, sometimes I'll click the wrong thing, or I'll press a button, or I'll do something. I'm like, what is going on? So are there any courses or anything you could recommend for people who need to just brush up on tech?
Honestly, you have to practice. That's the first thing. I think people get sort of paralyzed with their intimidation of technology. And so you're not constantly on the platforms and on your phone and on your computer, and you're only doing the couple little things that how to do. A lot of tech is really just experimentation. Now, granted, there are some things you could do that might crash your whole machine, but it's very, I'm not gonna say it's rare. It's not as likely that you're going to just completely break your entire system before a window would pop up and say, are you sure you want to do that? Or, doing this will delete everything. Like, there's a lot of stuff built into tech now that are fail safes for people not to, quote unquote, mess up too much. So I would say, get into the habit of engaging with your technology on a regular basis. I used to tell my mom when I had to teach my mom how to email, and I was like, send me an email every day. You don't have to have anything in the body of it. You can say hi, whatever, but just get in the habit of sending me an email every day. And now get in the habit of attaching something to that email to send to me every day. You know what I mean? So it really is just, removing. We talking about practice, you know what I mean? And the immortal words of AI, we talking about practice. You really do have to engage with the technology. I mean, you could take a course, like AARP has courses. There's no shortage of places you can go to you can pick up a For Dummies book. You can, there's CDs you can use, but there's no shortage of education around technology. But at the end of the day, you just got to do it.
So I guess, so you're absolutely right. I know that there's so much information out there. I think what paralyzes people is the idea of not knowing where to start. So that's a good starting point. Start small by...
Yeah, think about the things you want to do today. I want to be able to send an email. I want to be able to use Excel. I want to be able to, go live on Instagram. Those 3 things. And so those are the 3 things. And honestly, people joke about YouTube University. Like I get most of my instruction and education from YouTube at this point. Like I'm in courses as well. I'm actually in a course now for AI, and when you actually do need sort of professional instruction, you definitely seek out those opportunities. But there's just so much information out there on the internet already. There really isn't a reason or a justification for you to claim I don't know how to do this.
All right.
You know what I mean?
No
Google's free. And it just requires the time, the energy, and the effort to watch that 17-minute video and then put that thing into practice, or read that article and put those steps into practice. It just requires the effort and the will.
All right. Well, I'm going to change my ways, folks. I'm going to start leaning into technology.
Lean in. Come on. The water's fine over here. Come on in.
So let's get back to style for a second. So you have the short do. I'm team short hair. Hey.
All day.
We got the glasses. Omega Optical in the house.
Yes, these are Omega Optical as well.
Yes.
My Gucci's. We love them.
We got Prada over here, and Omega Optical is sponsoring this episode of The Secrets of Stylish Women. So just wanted to get that in here. But what's one style secret that you can share that really helps you when you're trying to get yourself together and trying to look chic, or whatever you're trying to accomplish?
Right. Try stuff on, because I always have an idea in my head of how the outfit is supposed to look. Putting it on my body sometimes is a whole different experience. Even in my own closet anymore, my body's changing. It's just like, okay, where did this little something come from? So, try stuff on, do that prep work in advance for outfits. I mean, I didn't necessarily always do that. And you get caught, because it's like, okay, I'm on schedule, but now if I have to rethink my entire look because it didn't fit right, or the colors didn't go together like I thought they would, or something like that. So definitely try your stuff on before, you get ready in the morning, or for your day, or for an event, or whatever. And then just, be fearless. Honestly, be fearless. And it's like,
I didn't pay Stephanie to say that, by the way.
She did not, because I've never been one to put a whole lot of value in what other people think about how I look. That's not, it probably sounds counterintuitive, considering I'm in TV and have modeled in the past and all this other stuff, but I just that wasn't what was most important to me. My mother always stressed, you're smart. This is how you're going to be successful. It was never, girl, you better use them looks to get what you want. And that was never the narrative in my house. And no shade to anybody that grew up like that, but I just wasn't raised to rely or depend on how I looked for anything. So it just wasn't that I'm not gonna say it wasn't that important to me, because you still want to look good, obviously, but I wanted to look good for me.
Yeah.
And I have a very sort of, I won't say contrarian nature, but kinda. As an Aquarius, I'm very independent, so I didn't want to follow trends necessarily, or I wanted to follow them the way I wanted to do them. Like I wanted to do it, but do it a little different, because I don't want to be like everybody else. So I've just always been very, very fearless and independent in the way I choose to look. And as long as I'm happy with it, then I'm good.
Yeah, and so you mentioned something interesting, and that's something that I teach my clients. First of all, the preparing your outfits in advance, that is something that is critical to looking good, because to your point, you know, in your mind, you may think that something
Oh, it
is
looks
clean,
amazing. And you're like, oh,
that
that's
it's
going to
even
look cute.
available. Where is it? You wake up and like, oh, wait a minute, where's that shirt? Or
Right.
where's it? I mean, it could completely upend everything that you're doing and send you on a spiral. But
Seriously.
in terms of short hair, how long have you been wearing your hair short? And how has that revolutionized your style?
Man, completely. Oh my gosh, I cut my hair in 2012 when I sort of pivoted the brand. So I was reporting traffic at the time.
So you've done it all.
I've done it all. I was working at this traffic startup called Tango Traffic. I don't know if anybody out there watching remembers Tango Traffic, but I was doing the afternoon drive, and I was wearing like half wigs. Like with, you have a little bit of leave out in the front and you just clip the wig right here, and it just, because I was like, I can't keep doing my hair. Because my hair was past my shoulders, and I was just like, I cannot keep this up with my own hair.
Right.
So I would just pop a little wig on, pop it back off, pop a little wig on, pop it back off. And, it was cool. They was all right. They weren't great, but and I wasn't never into like the whole lace front and melting stuff down. I don't even think they were doing that back then. But it was just real quick and simple and convenient. Pop this wig on, pop it back off. And when I pivoted the brand, when I was like, okay, I'm doing this tech thing now for real, I was like, I need a look. And I need that to be my look. Because when you're, even when you're doing wigs, which wig, I had like 7 different wigs. So I was like, which wig I want to wear today? Oh, I don't know. How I want my hair to look. Even when I'm not wearing wigs, oh, now I got to do my hair. What I want my hair to look like. Ugh.
Decision fatigue.
Yes, and it was, I don't want to have to worry about that. And if I'm thinking brand, it has to be head to toe. So what is the hair going to look like as a part of that brand? And I remember it was, you remember when, what was that movie? I think it was For Color Girls. And Janet Jackson, her haircut in that movie, she was the one that Omar was on the low. Omari Hardwick was on the low. Her haircut, I remember I went to my stylist and I was like, I had that picture. I was like, and it's so funny because I didn't tell anybody I was cutting my hair. I did it on the weekend. I was like, nobody at work knew, on air at Tango Traffic, but I didn't even tell my mom. I was like, I went up there, I was like, here, we cutting it today. She was like, what? You doing it? I was like, yup, we cutting it. So she cut it. It looked, oh my gosh, so sharp.
Sure.
So I was so excited. Went back to work the next Monday. Everybody's like, oh my God, your hair looks amazing. My mom was not thrilled. She's like, you cut off all that hair. I worked so hard to grow. I'm just like, first of all, it's just hair.
Exactly.
Relax.
Exactly.
But I just, and I've had my hair short before, like when, in high school and different things like that. But you do kind of, and I've always loved short hair. Like I remember in high school, and this is gonna, this will tell you how old I am. I got my hair cut the same way. I don't know if you remember the show 21 Jump Street.
Yes.
And Holly Robinson Peete.
Yes.
And she had a lot of hair, but then there was a season where she cut her hair, and it was real cute. It was such a cute little short cut. And I was like, ooh, I want my hair cut like that. So I cut my hair the same way Holly Robinson Peete had her hair cut in 21 Jump Street. So that was my short hair. And then, back in the day, everybody had finger waves and the high maintenance hairstyles like that. So I've had those styles. But once I cut it, back in 2012, I never looked back. I'm like, this is the hairstyle. This is how it's gonna work. And this is the look.
Yeah, I've always loved short hair also. I think it's such a flattering look on so many women, and I wish more women would embrace short hair because it can be so liberating. And, people often tell me, oh, you're lucky you can get away with that. Like I'm doing something that's so like...
No, anybody, seriously, like you just need the right cut for your face shape and your head shape. I will say though, it was a journey to getting to curly. You know what I mean? Because again, when you're on national television, you want to fit in. You don't want to necessarily stand out for the wrong reasons.
Right.
We know how Black women's hair is regarded in American society. So, you know, for a long time, I was getting the perms, I was molding the hair down, I was flipping the hair up, I was doing all the things. But again, not sustainable. And thankfully, I've been with my stylist for, you know, 20 years at this point. So I can literally call them and be like, on a Sunday or at any point really, and be like, yo, I got this thing tomorrow. Can I run up to the shop? Can I meet you at the shop real quick? And they will meet me there and hook me up if I need it. And I did that a lot back when my hair was straight, when I was wearing it straight. It would be like, because, you know, TV is very unpredictable. Somebody could call you the day before a segment and say, hey, can you be in New York tomorrow morning to talk about X, Y, and Z? And it's just like, yeah, sure. And now my hair's not done, you know what I mean? So there was a lot of that happening. And I'm spending a lot of money, and I'm paying my stylist to hook me up real quick.
And was your hair getting damaged?
It wasn't. It was still, you know, it was fine, but it was just, again, it's not sustainable. I don't always want to put them out like that. They'll do it because they know me and they love me, but I don't want to get somebody up out their bed on a Sunday to come do my hair. You know what I mean? Like it's a lot to ask, and I paid them, you know, extra and tipped them well and all the rest of that, but it's still a lot to ask.
Right.
And I don't always want to have to deal with that. So, you know, when I wasn't on air, I was wearing my hair curly, and I was just like, you know what? These perms are starting to, you know, my scalp ain't loving these chemicals, and I think I need to really start thinking about what a curly short hairstyle is gonna look like, and how I'm gonna work that and how I'm gonna make that work. But it was a fraught decision. I was just like, I'm gonna show up with curly hair, and I was like, hopefully nobody says anything. I can still remember one segment in particular on GMA3. I was like, I can't do it. I was like, I don't have time I don't even have time to drive up there to get it done. I got to be in New York tomorrow. I got to be on this train today. I was like, I'm gonna do my curly real cute, and we just gonna see what happens. And hopefully, and I mean, obviously nobody's saying that. I mean, I was fabulous. You know what I mean? Beat your face to the gods. You look good. You're feeling good or whatever. But there was a moment where I was just like, can I get away with curly hair on television?
And I think, you know, it's a shame that we even still have to think about
and
that.
have to do that mental calculus and be like, is somebody gonna say something if my hair is natural? Like, oh man, I don't like. It didn't last long because I was just like, I don't really have a choice at this point. But like you said, the fact that I had to even consider it and think about it was just like annoying and disappointing.
Yeah, that's a whole other podcast episode. But so you're very poised. You're very, you know, you present well in front of the camera. You're very polished, all these things. That is very counter what the, you know, idea of a tech person is. So how did you acquire these skills?
It's funny. I feel like I've always been this way. I've definitely been a sort of atypical sort of tech person. But this is practice. Again, we're talking about practice. Like I've been doing this since 2010 maybe. Actually since before 2007 actually, because I was doing sort of hosting things, and so it becomes about just getting those reps in, and then traffic is all sort of improv. There's no teleprompter for traffic. If you ever see somebody doing traffic or weather on television, they're just speaking based off of notes that they had and information they want to convey. They're just speaking. And the training I got when I first started reporting traffic was super, super helpful and valuable, because the woman that trained me, Kathy Caldwell, always emphasized the idea of telling a story. And it really is that, you know, when you're talking to people, you're telling a story, you're conveying information. And that's the other thing too, I think when I'm doing sort of tech tips and things like that, I think about I'm not thinking about, oh my God, there's so many people watching me and the camera's on and the red light and what. I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about this is really valuable information that I know somebody out there needs to have. And it's my job to convey it in a way that's going to make sense to them, that's going to be simple to understand, that's going to be entertaining because it is television. So there's all these things that need to happen that I'm responsible for. And I take that responsibility very seriously.
So that's something that's really interesting because when, in this age where everyone's a content creator and, everyone's a personal brand, and I know you are, a stickler for making sure that your personal brand is, on point from the physical to the internal, all that. But, as people create content, sometimes they get so caught up in themselves, like they don't put the message out there.
Right.
Or they don't share their gifts with the world because they're so worried about
what other people are going to think.
Exactly. So putting the focus on the recipient of the information is a great way to kind of think about that.
Yep. And I actually worked at QVC as well. I was a model there. I was a guest there, but my last role was with HP. So I sold computers. Okay. And part of their training, because they train you for on air as well, they have a strategy called over the backyard fence. And it's like you're just talking to your neighbor in the yard, telling them about this awesome thing that you just found. That's how you approach the sales pitch, if you will. And, I got advice there, like look into that camera and talk to your mom or pick somebody, one person, and just talk to them. And that's the thing. I think when you get sort of stuck in that fear of like, oh, people aren't going to watch or, people going to do what they going to do. And that's the one thing. I want people just really ain't thinking about you like that. They really not checking for you like that. Like in a sense they are if they follow you, if they like what you do. But at the end of the day, most people really just don't care. That's the secret that I think people miss out, and they might say something snarky in a comment, but 5 minutes later, 2 minutes later, they're off to something else. They're not even thinking about you. Like people aren't really thinking about you the way you think they're thinking about you. Right. They're not. So you really got to get over yourself in that way. And if you feel like you have something valuable to say, just say it. You know what I mean? It just and let the chips fall where they may, and don't get so stuck on, well, I can't go on camera without doing. And I mean, like I said, and I'm telling you, this is somebody who has experienced all of these things. Because I can remember back when I first started doing my 60-second tech break videos. I wouldn't do them until I put makeup on. You know what I mean? And the hair had to be, Now I'd be like, yeah, look, y'all, yeah, I'm in front of a green screen with a headline and maybe my head wrapped up, and it's about for me anyway. It's about the information. I truly believe that what I am conveying is valuable, that it's stuff people need to know and need to understand. So I kind of take myself out of it.
Okay, so you mentioned 60-second tech break, and I'm glad you did because I used to love seeing those videos. Where are they?
I know. Listen, burnout is real, child. Burnout is real. I did those videos every week religiously for like 2 years. And it just got I will say at the end of September 22, I did get sick. I'm not going to sort of go into a whole thing here, but I got sick in September. So a lot of stuff got shut down from September into 2023 while I was just recovering and getting healthier. But, at the same time, the burnout is real. The burnout is really, really real. And it just was just like another video. You do get kind of tired, but they're coming back. They are coming back soon.
Okay, but you do have a podcast.
Yes. I have a podcast called The Tech John. I have 2 other co-hosts that do the podcast with me. One is in Ohio. The other one is in Atlanta, Terrence Gaines and Rob Dunwood. And yeah, we do that every week. So because I don't have to do a whole lot of work for that, I just get to kind of hop on the StreamYard and familiarize myself with the content, and we just get to talk for 60 minutes. You know what I mean? So it's a little bit better. Rob sort of handles all the back end stuff with the audio and uploading it to the platforms that we're on. We're on all platforms. Get it wherever you download your podcast. but yeah, it's fun because it's just I get to talk shit basically about technology and it's from our perspective, from
Yes.
perspective of people of
Yes.
color. So
Yes.
I can appreciate that. But
Yes.
but the 60-second tech break is coming back, I promise.
But I love that because I thought that was such a great branding tool. You know?
Absolutely.
So was there like a whole strategy behind it? How did you start that?
The podcast?
The 60-second tech break.
It wasn't there. It was. When did I start doing that? I think I came up with a name, and I thought about my attention span, which is hella short these days. I'm like, a 10-minute video, I ain't watching that. You know what I mean? And I just felt like there was a way to give people tech information in bite-sized pieces that would be. I actually had a tagline. The tagline was watch, learn, do. So you spend a minute or a minute and a half watching this video, you learn something you didn't know, and then you can go and actually implement that thing. So it was always about very actionable and relevant tech information as well. It wasn't, I'm not talking about so-and-so just raised this much money and, startup, blah, 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 blah. It was like, look, go change this setting right now because this company just got hacked and this happened. So it always had to be actionable and relevant and timely. And so that sort of just all conspired to make sense when you bundle it in a minute format.
So I have to be honest with you. I was gonna bite and do like my little 5-minute Fashion Friday or something like that.
Do it. Listen, that makes and that's the thing. It's all about that branding, right? People remember 60-second tech break, 5-minute fashion bite. Like, I'm not mad. Do it. I'm gonna be looking for it. Come on.
No, I just got obligated to do something else. So let me tell you. Let me tell you how this podcast got started. So I actually did have an idea for a podcast. What it is today, the secrets of stylish women, and I thought about the concept, and I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I reserved the domain, and I sat on it, and I recently ran into Stephanie at a podcast workshop. Shout out to Suleiman in Philadelphia.
Definitely.
And we're actually in Philly now, so I don't believe I didn't mention this at the beginning of the podcast. We are sitting in the beautiful, the fabulous Maison Philly Fashion Week, and we're having an event here in a couple of weeks, May 17th from 5 to 8, so stop by. But before then, please stop by and support this gorgeous business. There are beautiful clothes here by local designers, so stop by. So anyway, so we saw each other at a podcasting event, got to talking, you asked me about, I don't know, I guess we got in a conversation and I mentioned I had this idea, and you challenged me.
I'm just saying, what we doing? Because you was like, well, I've been thinking about it for like a year and a half. I'm like, a year and a half? Like, what's the hold up here? What's
Well, I
going
told you
on?
I am not technically inclined, so I didn't know how to start.
Right,
I didn't know what I needed.
And you don't know what you don't know. I get it.
And not only that, it's like, okay, yeah, I've heard of people starting podcasts with their iPhones and things like that, but it's like, okay, but now what do I do with this? And like, I just didn't know what to do.
Right.
So you were like, all you need is the Blue Yeti mic and the StreamYard account. And I was making 1,000 excuses. So I was like, you know what? We're going to do this in 30 days. We set the date that night. And, I didn't want to start my first episode with a guest because I kind of, wanted to get my footing. So I did my little bootleg setup at home. Y'all saw me in front of my bookshelf and, behind.
Listen, it is not bootleg. There is nothing wrong with humble beginnings. And you start where you are. And I think that's the lesson. It's like you just start where you are with what you have.
Yeah, because if I didn't start that way, I would not have started. Like I would have tried to wait until I had a vocation.
All of this, yes, exactly. And that's not even necessary.
So I actually felt okay about some of the episodes. Sometimes, like, how do you feel about being... So, like, when you put yourself out there, there's a level of vulnerability that comes along with it. So.
Absolutely. But again, I don't necessarily make it about me. Like I do, go back and look at some segments and be like, ooh, I flubbed that line, or I forgot to mention that one talking point, or, first of all, that stuff is invisible to the person watching. They're not going to see that or notice it at all. and again, it's not about me. Like that's how I get over myself. I'm like, the information got out there, and then you do get the feedback. So you will start to get, if you haven't already, you will start to get feedback from people that will tell you, oh my God, that episode was so great. You helped me so much. Oh, that one little tip you said about this. So those are the things that you do use, without relying on caring about what people think. You take those cues to know that you're doing something valuable.
Right.
That's the thing, because you want to believe that what you're doing has value, and I think that's what anybody wants at the end of the day. And those things, those types of comments, are what keep me going. And I'll go back and scroll back through old posts and look at the comments and see, dang, Steph, this was right on time. Okay, I'm going to go change the setting right now. Okay, I'm going to download this app right now. You know what I mean? I go back through, not all the time, but occasionally, once a quarter maybe, or when I'm feeling some kind of way, like, what does this all mean? I'm burnt out. I can't do it. I will literally go back through and just look at old posts and look at comments and be like, okay, all right, I get it. And then I think, in those moments too are when God shows up. You know what I mean? And you feeling some kind of way, and you'll get a comment like that right that day. You be like, oh, all right, Lord, I hear you. All right, let me get over myself. So you have your moment if you need it, but then you just have to figure out a way to push through. And whether you're a person of faith or whatever that looks like for you, you got to figure out a way to push through.
That is so true. So you said something that's going to take us right into the next topic. So you talked about comments. When we talk about comments and posts and things like that, and when we talk about responsible and irresponsible use of technology, so you have the sweatshirt on now.
Ow, branding.
Talk to us about responsible technology use.
Well, it's about intention, right? Like, what are you doing online? What are you doing it for? What's your goal? And I don't think people think about that enough before they just get their little fingers popping, because it's so easy to want to say something snarky, to make a comment. You have that perceived anonymity. You think people don't know who you are, or won't be able to find out who you are. So it emboldens people to act in ways that they wouldn't act in real life, unfortunately. But I challenge people to be intentional, because number one, your digital footprint is a thing. So all those little comments, all those likes, all those everything, all of your electronically connected activity, any and all of it that is connected to an internet, is your digital footprint and makes up your digital footprint and can be searched and recovered. That's what people fail to realize. It's like all of that. You could do your fake account or your burner account or your throwaway or your Finsta. You can be doing all of those things, but the internet just never forgets. That's why the seminar is called Till Death You Tweet. The internet literally never forgets, and all of those things are searchable and recoverable. So knowing that, now how does that change how you move in the digital space? If you knew that nothing you ever did or said on the internet was ever going to go away, what kind of stuff would you put out there?
So we're all in trouble. I know I'm in trouble. I'm sure I said something somewhere.
And we all have. We're human. I get it. But I think, there's a difference between, throwing shade at somebody's outfit and calling somebody a slur, you know what I mean? Or threatening their life, or, because people are just really awful on the internet and do some really awful things. And, especially now with AI, we've added a whole nother layer of complexity to the issue. So it's incumbent upon all of us to take a beat, literally a second, before you hit post, before you hit send, before you angrily type out a whatever, and think about what your intention is with that interaction.
So one of the things that I like to do, that I've been doing in all the episodes, is not only talking about, so we've talked about a combination of things, style, technology, and even life in certain respects, but when you think about a secret or something that you wanted to share with people, it can be something inspiring, encouraging, a lesson you've learned. what would you like to share?
I want to encourage people to, honestly, it's going to sound like I'm pandering to your brand, but be fearless has been sort of my personal motto for a very long time. When I was getting checks from my bank, like it literally was printed in the memo section on the check. Like that is truly, like I had Post-its around my house that be fearless, be fearless, be fearless. Like that is truly sort of the mantra that I live by. It's my life's motto. And it doesn't necessarily mean you can't be afraid. Fearless just means doing the thing regardless, and so you just have to do the thing.
So I agree with that 1,000%. So I tell people this and they're shocked. I'm an introvert. There's a part of my personality that's very quiet and fearful and all that stuff. But when I think about, so the fact that I'm sitting here right now is a testament to being fearless.
That's right.
When, Instagram first came out, okay, I was posting pictures. And then when all this pressure came to do reels, I'm like, I'm not doing no reels. I don't want to do that, like all this stuff. And now I'm sitting here, and you have to really push yourself out of your comfort zone.
You do. You do. And it's just, try at least not to care so much about what other people think.
And honestly, that's what it is. Like, we try to act like we don't care, but a lot of people care.
A lot of people care too much, and they're letting it paralyze them, and that's how you get stuck.
So there's one more thing that I wanted to talk to you about, and it was another thing that I heard in your TEDx talk. And you spoke a little bit about how you prepare to transition from one industry to another. But I really wanted to highlight that because regardless of what industry you're in, what your background is, everyone can do things to improve themselves.
That's right.
And can you talk a little bit about some of the things that you did to prepare yourself?
Yeah, I tell people all the time, plan and execute. That's like, how did you do it? I planned and execute. We talked about the 3-pronged plan. You come up with a game plan and you execute. And then if you need, you can even make a list if you want, because I'm sure we all have those transferable skills that will take us into that next thing, that next chapter, but also get the training if you need to. I took an acting class at the Wilma Theater, to prepare for auditioning for commercials and movie roles and things like that. I took a hosting and spokesperson class. I took a teleprompter class, you know what I mean? So, get familiar with the industry that you're moving into and look for opportunities to get educated and get training, in that industry so that you feel comfortable and somewhat knowledgeable as you make that transition. But it really is, the planning of, I think the logistics piece is important. Like, what are you going to do for income in the meantime? Is childcare going to have to change if that's a consideration for you? Is my partner ready to move if we need to move to New York or LA or Miami or wherever this next opportunity is? Are we ready to geographically relocate? You know what I mean? So you have to really sit. I think people get excited about the idea, but don't really work the details out in advance. And then you're sort of scrambling and you're always trying to mitigate the next new wrinkle that pops up because you didn't think about all those details. Now, unfortunately, when I changed jobs, it was just me. I don't have any children. I wasn't seeing anybody at the time, so I could basically do whatever I want. You know what I mean? But everybody doesn't have that flexibility and that latitude to just say, all right, you know what? I think I'm leaving my job today, or whatever. But if you plan and you really do your best to think about all the different logistical and operational things that will change and will need to change. Like I said, healthcare. What are you going to do about healthcare if you leave your job? What are you going to do about so you really got to sit and think about those things and get that in place before you peace out.
So, important words to live by. Stephanie, I appreciate you gracing us with your presence.
This was so much fun.
The Secrets of Stylish Women. So stay tuned for a schedule of when the episodes will be coming out. We'll be bringing you more amazing guests, and some days just me. So join us. Thank you again, Stephanie. I appreciate you spending time with us. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Now we need somebody to come turn it off.